So we're here in the recently opened Rathbone Studios in Birkenhead. I'm talking to Janet Holmes. Now, Janet, just to begin with, just briefly, what is the Rathbone Studio?
The Rathbone Studio is a working pottery, and where it's a gallery, and where I produce my work, and also where I teach pottery classes for anybody who would like to create in clay.
Right. Okay. Now, what's your background in pottery? What's actually brought you to this particular point?
I went to art school when I was 16 and did a 3-year industrial ceramics course and learned all about how to make teacups and coffee pots and all that, and realised that just wasn't the way I wanted to go. So I've worked with hand building studio work ever since, and I've worked in different community centres teaching all age groups, children, adults. And then in 1990 I decided to set up my own business, but I had young children, so I was still sort of working, teaching, and I set up my own studio in my garage. And then about a couple of years, then I started, when my children got older, I then thought, right, this is it, I've got to go, I've got to exhibit my work more, around the country, I've got to sort of put myself out there. So I did my first solo exhibition at the Birkenhead Priory, which is in Birkenhead, which is the oldest building in Birkenhead. That was very successful. And we did a follow-up called Festive Fired at the Christmas, and I got people to work with tiles, and they decorated them, and then that was unveiled at the Festive Fired, and it's now a permanent display at the Priory, a community art piece. Then from that, I went over to a beautiful studio out in the middle of Cheshire, beautiful countryside, but I did feel a gorgeous place to work, but very, very isolated. And then I realised that 28 Argyle Street was vacant. And the significance of that is 28 Argyle Street is the home of the De La Robbia pottery.
Can I just ask you a question to lead into that?
Okay.
It splits it up a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Now, the building we're actually in has a very interesting history, doesn't it?
It does, very much so. When I realised that 28 Argyle Street was vacant, I had to bring my studio here, because 28 Argyle Street is the home of the De La Robbia pottery, which is a pottery that was in Birkenhead at the turn of the century, 1900. And it was a complete arts and crafts movement where potters made the shapes, and then the designers, the painters, were allowed to put their own patterns, designs onto the work. So each piece is individual. And it was opened by a gentleman called Harold Rathbone, and that's why I called the studio the Rathbone Studio.
Right. Now, when you decided to move here, you didn't just move in and set up. There was quite a lot you had to do first, wasn't there?
There was, because the premises before had been used as hairdressers, so it did need a lot of change and sort of taking a lot of fitments out and that sort of thing. I did get some help. The landlords are just amazing. Methodist Housing are just the most wonderful and supportive landlords I don't think I never thought people like that existed before, but they are just wonderful, and they really believed in what I was doing. They were very, very supportive, and then they said to me, why don't I apply for empty shop fund, which the local authority give to certain businesses or people trying to set up a business. And I was successful in that. I didn't get the full amount that I wanted, but I certainly got enough to give me a good start. So we sort of ripped everything out and painted and sort of got the feel of the place that I wanted. And we're in now a very sort of open, bright, white space, which is perfect for exhibiting work.
Okay. So talk us through some, obviously don't go in great detail, tell us what sort of things are on show here if people want to come by and have a look.
Well, the ceramics that I do is all hand-made, and it's all made with coils, so each piece again is completely individual. Even if I tried to copy a shape, it would not be exactly the same, and that's the beauty of it. I use different clays, and they're all high-fired, and it's actually bringing the qualities and the beauty of the clay out, which I find is very, very important and really excites me. I don't plan my work. it goes with how I'm feeling. So as I start working, in a sense, the pot is created as I work through with the clay. I find it extremely satisfying working with clay, and to me, it amazes me that you can get a lump of, in a sense, soil, in a sense, the ground, earth, and from that create something so beautiful and permanent. So a lot of my pieces are sculptural pieces. They're there because for their own sake. It's like every one of us, we don't have to justify who we are. We're here because we are, and it's the same with beautiful art, I think. It's there because it's beautiful, and it's there for everybody to have. And my work is, you can put it in the garden, you can put it in your home, you can put it wherever you want. And, I hope, and a lot of people who do buy my work feel that it's, they feel a personal connection to my work.
Now, when you're talking about hand-sculpted individual pieces of artwork, people tend to think huge amounts of money, but you've got some things here that are very reasonably priced, haven't you?
Yes, I have, and I think in a way that's the problem with ceramics, because if I was doing an oil painting, I would, obviously, the amount of time and effort that I put into a piece, I would charge an awful lot more. But I think, unfortunately, ceramics has a bit of a stigma in the sense of people class it as a craft. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but it's like breaking a perception, really. And what I tend to do is I make bigger pieces which are a reasonable price, and then I will create smaller pieces so people will be drawn to the bigger piece and say, oh gosh, I love that, and then they see the small and say, oh yes, I can afford that. So it's more of a thing that they would have and put into their home. I think when we're talking about an oil painting, it's more of an investment, but I'm hoping people will start seeing my work as an investment, as my work, as I say, is out in galleries around the country. So it is, I'm hoping that I'll build my name.
Brilliant. And you mentioned earlier you do teaching as well. Yeah. Is that aimed at everybody? Do you need a certain level of understanding already?
No, I work with any level at all, and I find that what I do, people will come and say, oh, I've done pottery before, but I do tend to go through the basics to begin with, because I will be really honest, I want to make sure people have those basic skills before I put anything in the kiln, because if it blows up, it's my kiln that's damaged. But I find that a lot of people enjoy that, because there's things that people think they know, and then as they're working through the basic techniques, it gives them other outlets, other ideas. But people do come as well who do have quite a bit of knowledge, and I'm happy to work with them, and in a sense they use me as a resource. They already have the skills. All they need from me is maybe a little bit of technical help on certain pieces and that sort of thing. So I'm happy to work with people of all levels.
Okay. So where is the Rathbone Studio and when's it open?
The Rathbone Studio is at 28 Argyle Street, Birkenhead, on the Wirral, Merseyside, and it's open Tuesday to Saturday, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then the workshops go on at other times.
All right. And if people want to find out more about what's going on, is there a website they can look at?
Yes, the website is www.rathbonestudio.com.